Hi, good morning, everybody, and welcome. We are so pleased that you have decided to join us this morning. My name is Gwen Gringheis. I'm the Assistant Registrar Recruitment and International at the John H. Daniels Faculty of Architecture, Landscape, and Design. And I will be your moderator this morning, and I am very pleased to introduce to you Professor Mason White, who will be leading the presentation this morning. After the presentation, we will open it up for Q&A. And so are more than happy to answer your questions. If you have any questions at all during the presentation, there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You can enter your questions there, and we will be able to answer them after the presentation has been completed. So without further ado, let me pass it over to you, Mason.
Thank you so much, Gwen. Welcome everyone from near and far and different time zones as I gather from the information that was coming in about attendance today. I assume we'll keep the door open and keep letting a few people in as the meeting proceeds. But yeah, welcome and thanks so much for your interest in our programs. We have an exciting list of events for this morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you are. I'm going to present, as Gwen said, the two programs, the post-professional MArch and MLA program and the Master of Urban Design program, maybe 15 minutes at most. And we'll leave some time for questions with me, but also we have some current students here, which I'm really excited. And we have some support as well from the Registrar and Student Services Office to address any of your questions in other regards as well. So without further ado, we'll begin now. So as I said, my name is Mason White. I've been here since about 2005. I'm trained as an architect and I have a post-professional architecture degree as well. And have worked in urban design and architecture prior to being a professor here. And my ongoing research and practice is also within urban design and architecture. Um, and I'll get started. Of course, in order to introduce the University of Toronto, we should, of course, introduce Toronto, which is kind of impossible to do. But of course, as you know, Canada has a rich history of Indigenous peoples prior to colonization, and since then has evolved to have several very large cities, Toronto being the largest. 7 million at current count, with about 3 million in the city core population, with a really incredible kind of mosaic of neighborhoods, all influenced by various cultures at various times throughout its young history as a city. I believe there's something like 250 nationalities represented, and multiple Chinatowns, Koreatown, Little Italy, Little Portugal, Little Brazil, Little India, Little Tehran. You could go on and on. A really incredible range with, I believe, still one of the most multicultural cities in the world, with more than half of its population born outside of Canada. And the University of Toronto sits right in this central position. It is a downtown urban campus. You'll see it in that light blue square there. And our building is sort of perfectly poised right at the corner, almost a corner of the campus, interfacing with the city itself, which is an ideal standpoint for us. We're sort of a bridge between the intellectual environment of the campus and the incredible kind of melting pot and rich, energetic life of the city. We are on an island, Spadina Roundabout, and you can see the campus has about 50,000 undergraduates and about 20,000 graduates. This is looking from the south of our building, which, as you can see, has Knox College, which was an old seminary, so a kind of historic building on one face. And there are 360 graduate students in our programs. And on the north face, a very modern glass, light-filled studio spaces that also lead down into our labs, like a robot lab, a milling lab, and other sort of workshop spaces with a really wonderful landscape around it. This is one of the hills that you can see here, and some of the programs that we have here. You certainly know architecture, landscape architecture, urban design, but we also have visual studies and forestry all on this incredible kind of mix within one Spadina here at the Daniels faculty. And it's a great sort of chance for connections between these programs. And I'm sure that current students here are already saying that they've encountered these connections, whether it's through choosing courses or through informal friendships that maybe have formed through the hallways or classrooms. This is a section. You can now see the old building on the left and the newer modern building on the right. I believe the newer modern building is approaching its 8th, 9th, or 10th year. I can't actually recall, but probably getting close to year 9 or 10. You can see a very large main hall on the ground floor in the center of that cross section, and then a light-filled upper floor where you see the long yellow arrow, the longest yellow arrow. That is the studio space, which is here on the right. And on the left is the double height kind of machine room. Here, there's currently a KUKA robot in there, which maybe some of our students that are here may be using now or in the future. Yeah, so I'm going to talk. So that's a quick, very quick introduction for those of you that aren't able to join us for our in-person open house to the campus, the building, and a little bit the city. But I hope you continue to do your own research on all three of those online. There's tons of great information about our program, or you can always ask us if you need clarification because we would be the original source. So as I said, as Gwen introduced as well, we have post-professional programs in Master of Architecture and Master of Landscape Architecture. I'm the director of that program. It is a small and selective program, but we welcome all applicants. Um, Typically, students have a Master of Architecture, sorry, a Bachelor of Architecture or a Bachelor of Landscape Architecture, and they're applying to do a 1-year focused research project. And we have incredible faculty to advise on a range of topics, and I'll present a little bit more on that. Um, but yeah, the program is basically an advanced design and research and individuals that are already holding degrees, as I said, and they'll work for 1 year with an advisor on a question to the discipline or question to the field, some form of inquiry that involves, and we work through methodology on that. We work through case studies. We work through other relevant scholarship that might pertain to the research that you're interested to pursue. Again, we have 2 students attending today, one from each the MArch post-professional program and the MLA post-professional program, and they can speak to a little bit more to some of those experiences if you'd like, and I can answer any questions as well. This is the description from the website. Um, Maybe something really important that's unique about our program compared to other programs is that we have a overlapping course with the PhD students here. So at the same time that there are new PhD students that have entered our program, PhD in architecture, the post-professional students are also in the colloquium course with those students. And so there's a great opportunity to sort of shadow what would a PhD be like if this is something a student is interested in to pursue following the 1-year post-professional program. So it's a great chance to sort of sample some of that curriculum. Um, and the program is relatively new. I'd say it's in its 5th year, and it's just getting stronger and stronger. We have an incredible group of students this year. I'm really proud of the work that they've done to date. So we do have 4 areas of interest or specialization, if you will, that we ask students to declare an interest in when they apply. This doesn't mean that they're locked into it, but it gives us a sense on what faculty members I get to speak to before to say, hey, we have a student coming here in this area. This is some of the interest they have. And I kind of pre-vet a profile on you to potential advisors. So it's very helpful. And I think for the most part, students have stayed within their category, at least this year. But yeah, computation and fabrication, health and society, sustainability and environment, and justice and action. So we ask when you apply that you declare, if you will, a sense on one of these four categories that you're particularly interested in pursuing and why, and how it relates to work you've previously done or how it relates to work you'd like to be doing professionally, or in research or in academia. Here's a description of the curriculum. As you can see, I can get it all in one page, unlike maybe some other programs. You spend the first 2 weeks in an intensive field course and thesis preparation course. And that's basically a chance, it's kind of a meet and greet with some current faculty. You get a chance to meet current faculty and be introduced to their research and get a sense for their interests. And you have really direct interaction with them about their work. And then in the thesis prep course is a chance for you to develop the early foundations of the research that you hope to pursue in the year ahead. That's a really important course to attend, and that usually starts around the middle of August. So you will want to plan ahead to be sure that you can be here. It's an in-person course, not virtual. So be sure that you're here to get the most out of that. It's really important to get those first steps out in your research, for them to be strong. Then you're also in the fall beginning your thesis in earnest. And at that point, you will be paired with an advisor of your choosing, and you go through a kind of interview process that the director will work with you on to ensure that you're meeting prospective advisors that have a good match for you. And usually it settles quite naturally. Usually an advisor expresses an interest in the student expresses an interest in the advisor, and we have a match. This takes usually no more than 2 to 3 weeks. And then you're off to the races and you're meeting weekly with them as touch points on your research as it progresses. Simultaneously, you're in the colloquium course, as I said before, which is ALA 4030. That is mixed with the PhD students. I think this year we have an equal balance between 5 PhD students and 5 post-professional students. So it's really great, sort of one for one pair, and I'm sure some friendships are already forming there. You can see the red asterisks there next to the electives. You have 2 electives in the fall and 2 electives in the winter. And I'll show you some samples of what these elective courses might be. And then again in the winter, you continue on with thesis until I believe it's around middle or late middle of April, in which you will defend your thesis. That will be your final presentation before graduation. Yeah, so as I said, these are some examples of some of the elective topics at your disposal. This is maybe I'm grabbing some from the last 2 years, designing with robots, wood and architecture, um, modern architecture, planetary warming histories, advanced design theories in corporate architecture, health in the built environment, acoustic architecture, mass timber building technology, how the climate crisis is changing architectural practice, sci-fi cinema and architecture, natural materials, housing and social justice in North America, designing with the more than human world. That one's actually coming up. Material storytelling and chemical world making also coming up, and mapping our, sorry, the tab is, I think it says mapping our commons. Yes, mapping our urban commons. Um, and yeah, and then here's some examples of, I hope you have found this page on our website, but it is at the bottom of the post-professional program page. You can find a list of all of the past, or at least the last 5 years, a list of the students, the advisors, and the titles of their thesis. You can see a range there of topics. I would say students pursue something that's not totally new to them. Usually they're picking up on a research area that they've pursued in a prior project, or or maybe their undergraduate thesis, or something they pursued professionally, or something they pursued independently, and something that they're quite passionate about. It might be technical, it might be social, it might be environmental. Um, yeah, a real range of subjects you can already see, anything from historical site-specific things to technical facade details. So a really, really wild range of details. And you can see that the faculty that supports this is quite wide ranging. We don't have just the same faculty advising thesis over and over again. Yeah, so these are some of the recent advisors. They range from architecture program, urban design program. They teach in our technical courses. They teach in our design courses. Um, yeah, I'll leave some of these names up there, but you're welcome to look again on our website where we have some of these faculty members, and you can look up more on their research if you're interested. But um, but yeah, I'm quite biased, but we have a really incredible range of opportunities with some incredible minds and really dedicated teachers. Okay, shifting gears a little bit, and of course, we'll leave time to ask questions about the post-professional programs at the end, but I wanted to speak a little bit about the Master of Urban Design program. This program is centered, of course, in Toronto and of course in Canada, but we are hoping to continue to expand its sort of global reach and understand its potentials to address global issues. So usually this happens more in the second year. For example, this year, in the second year, a group of urban design students just returned back from Lima, Peru, doing a studio there looking at the Lurin Valley. And the Lurin Valley is a mostly rural farmland space. And there's a lot of urbanization pressures in that valley, and there's a rich indigenous history there that is sort of under threat from this. So anyway, these are a range of possible subjects, both near and far, that we look at. In the first year, and we'll have Stephanie actually from the MUD1 program. She can speak about a really very great studio they're working on right now, which is looking at some of the densification challenges in Toronto's urban core. Um, yeah, so I would say we have about 17 students across the two programs, the 2 years program this year. And in the first year, these students work very closely with the architecture and landscape architecture program in the studio setting, as well as having their own dedicated urban design history course, theory course, um, and yeah, so I'll run through the courses here. Um, and prior to that, I should say there's a 2-week August intensive course, again, which privileges computation, representation, drawing, which is a great sort of orientation session, both in terms of tools, the campus, the city, also really helpful to kind of be in here before the fall semester kicks off when it gets even more intense and more busy. It's a great opportunity, a little bit more calm before the storm, if you will. You can see the rest of the courses I just referred to. There's URD 1011 Urban Design Studio, which is in tandem with the Master of Architecture and the Master of Landscape Architecture studios. And that's a chance to sort of understand the transdisciplinary nature of urban design, how it interfaces with buildings, how it interfaces with landscape, and some of the great opportunities in working across those different disciplines. Um, and then urban history theory criticism, introduction to urban design theory and practice, which sometimes shifts from kind of Toronto-centered beginnings until it radiates outward towards world urban issues. And then in the second semester of the 2-year program, there will be a dedicated urban design studio course. Rather than saying options, by the way, that's just an urban design studio, as well as urban design and development, a required course. And then you have at your disposal 2 electives. In the second year, in the fall term, this is where the current option studio that went to Lima, Peru, is occurring. That's URD 2013. That's a required course. And then you will take URD 2014, which is thesis research and preparation. And that basically is a seminar style, research centered discussion course, which is to assist students in working towards the foundations of their thesis taking place in term 4, so their final semester. And then 2 electives again to complement your interests. there. And I will say, by the way, sometimes students do take a elective in their first term as well. And that could lead to the possibility of taking one less elective in your third or fourth term, if that is of interest. But so in the fourth term, you can see there's a required planning and real estate development course, which is a great opportunity to have a deeper understanding about real estate and planning issues in Canada and in Toronto. It's a very essential knowledge to an urban designer. There will be some applicants that have a planning background. We can discuss if you have an exemption for that course. If that's something that you have an equivalent, we can find an elective that could replace it. And then finally, your urban design studio thesis course is your own independent thesis as you work with an advisor of your choosing. And there's a balloting process for the advisor selection in order to ensure that there's a good balance of advisors and students. And yeah, here's an example of some of the urban design specific electives. This doesn't mean that you can't take an elective in landscape architecture or architecture, but I just highlighted some that are urban design specific. There's urban housing, designing the peripheral city from 2 years ago, planning and designing for community power, which is a collaborative course now with School of Cities, which is another great resource. I don't have enough time to mention that resource. There's public engagement in urban design, designing for cultures, inquiry for a multicultural city, offered last year, designing with the more than human world, artificial intelligence and urban futures, which is a new course offered this year, and green belts, degrowth, and the metabolic rift is also a new course offered this year that may repeat. These are some of the instructors and professors and adjunct professors that teach in the urban design program, specializing in real estate, urban history, planning, community engagement, urban design, etc. So housing specialists, etc. This is an image to say we have some amazing student work, and I'll see if there's briefly a moment just to show you um, if this hopefully is screen sharing has stopped. Let's see, am I still able to share my screen? Let me try this one more time. Um, Pardon. Yes, okay. So there is a page, I hope you have found it, on our website under students and student work, and you can browse through an incredible archive of student work. And some to highlight, sometimes you can see it will say, this is a post-professional student, and yeah, Master of Architecture post-professional, and you can browse through samples of their work. Here's one from last year. You can browse through photos of an exhibition. It's not loading, probably because I switched screens. But anyway, these are here as a resource to you. I don't want to take up too much more time on that. So please feel free to browse at your own. Of course, we also have social media, which is another great platform for seeing recent student work and some of that relevance. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. And thanks very much for your attention. And I think we can shift to questions and maybe some statements or questions as well from students or other from student services.
Thank you so much, Mason. So I'll ask all of our panelists to join. You can turn on your cameras, and I will ask everybody to introduce themselves, and we'll just go across my screen. So we're starting with Stephanie. If you want to just introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what you're researching as well.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, I am Stephanie. I am a first year student in the Master of Urban Design program. My background is in architecture. I got a bachelor's of architecture and then my architecture license while I was living in the States, but I'm from Canada originally, so I'm back here. And so this is my first semester in the program. And so we're still looking at Toronto for the most part. So right now I am studying in studio, one street in Toronto that's going to sort of be densifying and kind of changing the character of the neighborhood because they're getting additional transit stops there for the subway. And so looking at kind of the cultural and social implications of that on the character of the street, as well as what that density might actually look like.
Thank you, Stephanie. And Alex, how about you?
Hi, my name's Alex Schmidt. I'm an assistant registrar here at the faculty. I'm within admissions. I will be processing a lot of the applications. If you have any questions about the application requirements, the process, things like that, feel free to ask them and I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. And Sarah?
Sarah. I'm in the post-professional Masters of Architecture program. My background is also in architecture, so I have a Bachelor of Architecture, and my area of interest through this one-year thesis, design thesis, is basically computation and fabrication. And what I'm currently working on is building a design collaborator tool that will kind of disrupt the design process through randomness from the physical world.
Thank you, Sarah. And
Thank
Bianca?
you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bianca Novielli. I am the Associate Registrar of Financial Aid and Awards here at the faculty. I am your go-to person if you have any questions related to finances, financial scholarships and awards. So I can share my email address, possibly. Am I able to do that in here, Gwen?
You can,
Everyone
yes,
has-
you can put it
Okay.
in the chat and share it for everyone.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I realize financials are kind of a personal topic, so I will share my email address in here so that you can reach out to me directly if you don't feel comfortable talking about finances in this group setting.
Thank you so much. And Chen, how about you?
Hi everyone, I'm Chen. I'm a student in post-professional Master of Landscape Architecture program. As for my background, I graduated from with a BLA degree, and also I'm a in practice landscape architect. Through my working experience and my practice, I've been focusing on Toronto's community developments and urban design issues. This is also the most this is also the motivation of myself being here, doing my own research on forming sense of belongingness through the public engagement in the context of Toronto communities.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So we will go through all of your questions. So if you have questions for any of the panelists, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and put your questions there. So we do have some questions that have come in, and so we will start with those. So Mason, the first question I do think is for you. It's for somebody who is working full-time and is wanting to I'm not sure exactly which program they're interested in, but are any of the programs you talked about, is it possible to complete those programs remotely?
Yes, great question. No, it is not. We are an in-person university. We strongly believe that the best education occurs in a classroom-based setting, rubbing elbows with other students who will be part of your generation of practitioners and academics and scholars. It is the best way to learn and teach, and we stand by that. You know, pandemics, of course, being a unique situation, but in this instance, we are an in-person only, and we are full-time as well.
Thank you so much, Mason. So this question I think is also for you, and this is somebody who's trying to decide between urban design or a Master of Planning, and they're curious about what the differences might be in those programs and what the possible career outcomes might be from the Master of Urban Design.
Great question. Well, maybe the simplest distinction between planning and urban design would be that planning is more in the realm of policy and, let's say, urbanism through writing, or the description or parameters of urbanism through writing or description of them. And urban design would be looking more at the dimensions and materiality and some of the three-dimensional aspects of that through the design realm, and probably has more interface with architecture and landscape architecture than planners. That's maybe being a bit simplistic, and if there were any planners in the room, they might disagree. But my own bias is that, but I think urban designers and planners are very effective at working with each other because they complement each other. Um, but yeah, I'd say planning often works at a much larger scale sometimes than urban design. Urban design probably more at the scale of a block, and planning might be looking at the scale of a neighborhood or even a whole municipality or a whole section or portion of the city. And of course, architecture we know typically looks at a building. So these are kind of progressive scales of domains of landscape, I think works across many of these scales. But broadly speaking, there. And some of the career paths for urban designers would be, of course, working in an urban design centered practice, or working in a planning practice as their urban designer, working at the city or working at cities as their urban designer. I'd say it's always interesting to me when I meet those that work at say, for example, the city of Toronto. I was just speaking with someone yesterday who was a guest for us from the city of Toronto. She's a senior urban designer there, and she has an architecture background. And I think we need more of those with an urban design background in urban design positions in municipalities. And many of our graduates have gone on to work at, let's say, City of Oakville or Scarborough. Had just a graduate from last year just get hired at the City of Scarborough. Um, and anyway, and then other possibilities, of course, are working in an architecture or landscape architecture practice as their in-house urban designer. So yeah, that would be some of the possibilities. And of course, then there's academia as another platform as well. And consultants. We all know the world has more consultants than it can ever have. So yes, urban design consultancy is also a professional career possibility. I'll leave it at that list for now.
Thank you, Mason. So this question I think will be for both Mason and Chen. But the question is, can you speak to how the MUD program would be for someone with a planning background, both college and professional, with an interest in urban design? I am unsure to apply or not, since this program seems to be geared towards those with an architecture background. Sorry, so I think that's
Ah,
not for Chen,
okay,
sorry.
yes. That's a great question. Thank you so much for asking that question. So yes, Stephanie in this case does have an architecture background. I don't know, Stephanie, maybe you can say, is anyone in our program this year in your cohort have a planning background?
Um, no, so we have 6 people with architecture backgrounds and one with a landscape architecture background.
Yeah.
So we're pretty.
Last year there was a student with a planning background. Yeah, it is not necessary to have, it is a benefit in the application process because a portfolio is an important aspect of your application. So if you can demonstrate creativity and your interest in the city through photography, through I don't know, a model you made in high school, or I mean, but also maybe you've written about the city. Maybe you took a course in undergraduate. Like it is not mandatory that you have a background, a professional degree in architecture or landscape architecture. So yes, you're strongly encouraged to apply. I would say put as much effort as you can into your portfolio to demonstrate creativity and to demonstrate a kind of interest or curiosity about urbanism or urban issues or social issues in the city or ecological issues, whatever they might be, um, or travel. Yeah, I think the more you can express that in your portfolio, it can help make up for not having a bachelor degree in architecture or landscape architecture. Um,
Perfect. Thank you both. So this question is about portfolio. What kind of portfolio or design or architecture or a research-based portfolio or prior experience makes a strong application for these post-professional programs or architecture? So I guess Mason, we could ask you that question as well.
Well, yeah, maybe let me ask Sarah and Chen to say a word about how you structured your portfolio because they made it in the program and they both had really strong portfolios. So maybe Sarah and Chen, do you want to say a word about that? Sarah, why don't you go first?
Yeah, sure. So when it comes to the portfolio, I remember a whole bunch of my portfolio was actually from my undergraduate program as an architecture. I did have few projects from my professional practice, mainly my own projects or like freelancing projects, because as you know, when you're working in a firm, sometimes it's really hard to kind of get specific drawings or specific models. So I would really encourage you to have work from your undergraduate degree if you have a Bachelor of Architecture or Landscape Architecture, and then maybe have just some personal projects that you've done. For me, for example, I had a small research on AI and architecture that I've kind of added at the end of my portfolio. One project only from my post graduating. It was like a small project that I've worked as a competition, but then a whole bunch of it was from my undergraduate uh, program.
And Chen?
Yeah, and for me, like since I've been working for several years, so for the majority work in my portfolio application came from my work. Some of projects I did through the practice, but also I also include I think one of the work from my BLA program thesis design. I contained it, but I think from what I understand about the portfolio, it's about myself, it's about my story, but about my thinking, my philosophy of myself. So to my point, it's a storyboard to introduce myself and to go through to really use those projects as opportunities for people to understand me. So that's the logic how I combine those different type of work into my portfolio.
Great. Thank you both. Mason, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
I don't think I could have said anything better. Sarah and Chen covered it very well. Yeah, it's all of those things that they said. Um, yeah.
Perfect. So it looks like we are getting through all the questions. So again, to our audience, if you have any questions, please do submit them. But I would love to hear more from our students as well. So perhaps I'll ask our students a little bit about maybe why they chose to study what they're studying, and maybe a little bit through that process. So we'll start with Stephanie.
Yeah, so I mean, I come from a background in architecture and I'd worked for 3 years and then decided that I wanted to go back to grad school, specifically chose to look at urban design programs because I still love architecture, want to operate in that world, but I also want to have um, kind of a deeper understanding of the context that we're building within. And so I thought that a Master of Urban Design would be a great way to still continue to develop my design thinking, but also to kind of expand upon the research and the process of community outreach and understanding where we're building and why we're building and what are the impacts of that. So that was sort of the background and the reason that I chose to study what I'm studying is because I think that it'll help me ultimately build better buildings and kind of help build a more nuanced and sensitive kind of environment, which is what I want to do as an architect. So yeah, that's for me.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And how about you, Sarah?
Yeah, so I kind of have two reasons. The first being that in my undergraduate, our senior year or our final project was also a studio. So I didn't have a chance to have the actual thesis. And that was kind of motivating me to see that, okay, I have a thesis in mind and I want to explore that thesis. And I want to go through a program that will specifically make me focus on a thesis, which is the 1 year program. Another reason is definitely to kind of strengthen my resume. I'm very interested in academia, so hopefully maybe going for a PhD program in the future, going through the teaching sector and like being able to teach or something. So it's definitely being a reason to upgrade my professional understanding of architecture and also in academia as well.
Thank you, Sarah. And how about you, Chen?
Yeah, so as also mentioned very earlier, so my main motivation to come back to school, it came from my work experience. So during my work, I realized some urban design issues currently going on, but I didn't really get a chance because as in practice, it's always project orientated. So I really want to use this opportunities to return to school and to make this issue focused, argument centered research to study on some specific topic. And I realized and hope to find out some solutions maybe to the future. That's the point.
Thank you so much. So the next two questions are about the post-professional program. So I'll start with Mason, but Sarah and Chen, if you have anything you want to add, please do. So this question is it possible to know the annual calendar in terms of the number of hours required in each course to be fulfilled in a one-year program? And they're also adding that they saw on the website that the program does need to be completed within 3 years. And so they're assuming that means it's not possible to complete it part-time. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't think it says 3 years, but that's worth checking. That's usually there in case there is a dramatic personal event that, um, and maybe Alex, you might be able to speak more to this, but my understanding is that we give a long window in which arrival and, I guess, you must graduate by date X in case either there is a life event or something that pulls you away from your studies that's unexpected, or in something I haven't seen in the full 5 years, but if there's a failure of a course and a need to repeat something, um, that's my understanding. Alex, are you able to speak a little bit more from the registrar's perspective, why there's a 3-year window when part-time is not an option?
Well, to that, it's you essentially covered it, is that obviously life happens sometimes. So there is a max usually of how long something can be taken, just because, the teaching can be different. After 3 or 4 years, the program could be even a little different. So we want to make sure to have it within a specific window, but there's no like baked in structure for it to be a part-time program. It is there for, as you said, kind of life events and it is case by case. It does involve kind of a process, meeting with the registrar, coming to ORSS and things like that. It's not a matter of, oh, I want to stretch this out over 3 years. Going in with that kind of thinking would not work. Not thinking, but hoping that structure was going to be there. Like planning for part-time would not really work. It's like you said, kind of life events, or
Yeah.
God forbid, if you fail a course or things like that, it's there. So there's a max, like there's an actual max because of things outside of full life events, like you said, failing a class happen. But like I said, you don't plan for that structuring. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And in terms of the number of hours, it's really done by credits. And so I don't know, maybe Sarah, do you want to say what's a typical week for you this fall in terms of when you have classes and when you have time to work on your research?
Sure. So we currently have the colloquium, which is a core course in the post-professional Masters of Architecture, and we do have two electives along with a thesis. In terms of timing, so each of the electives is once a week, and for me, they're on Tuesdays, so it's a 3 hours each. So the electives are 3 hours long. Usually, there's a flexibility when it comes to timing. It's like you'd have discussions with the professor, for example. Many of the projects are like presentation based, etc. But in terms of timing, that's 3 hours dedicated to electives each. Core is also 3 hours. And then, so technically, there would be 2 weeks, 2 days, sorry, in the week is for your electives and core. And the rest of the week is basically you finding a perfect time between you and advisor to meet once a week. And then the rest of the time is basically you working on your thesis along with your assignments. So I'm gonna be honest with you and say it's pretty intense, but at the same time, it's just 1 year. So it's 1 year dedicated just to focus on your thesis and to focus on getting your degree, which makes it perfect. For example, if you just want to take 1 year off of your professional work and working and then just dedicate it to your thesis. So intense yet manageable. Just if you want to have proper time management skills, you will be able to achieve it. It's pretty organized in a way that the thesis will not overlap with your projects, but it would be amazing if you were able to link your electives with your thesis. That way, the workload will kind of be divided, and you will also be adding more knowledge from your electives into your thesis project.
Great suggestions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Um,
Chen,
okay.
did you want to add anything to that?
Sorry. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, my experience is pretty similar to what Sarah has mentioned. Like we are basically staying in the same class except for the elective. But yeah, but I mean, we have different electives falls into different categories. So the orientation or the structure could be a little bit different. Some electives are more presentation, discussion lead. Some elective could contain like exams type of thing. I just finished a midterm exam about 2 weeks ago. But I would say if you only count the course hours, it's not that many, but it's more about the way how you want to study on your own work and how much time you can uh, assign to your each of your courses or your assignment. And since Mason already mentioned, this is a full-time program, so I would say I expect I put full-time hours to my school, but with some flexibilities. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So this question, I think again, Mason, we'll start with you. The prospective student has a thesis in mind that they would like to research, but are there any specific recommended topics that might be encouraged for students to work on?
Well, I mean, we've listed, if you're referring to post-professional program, which again is a research thesis-oriented program, 1 year, as they said, we've listed 4 general umbrella areas of interest that I think kind of captures the strengths of the faculty. That's not to say that there aren't other minor topics. I mean, we have um, we have specialists in like carbon footprint. We have specialists of material science. We have specialists in building science. There's a lot of other sort of niche topics one could look at. Um, yeah, and so like we're interested in what you're interested in, and if we can make a good match for you, I will say sometimes we do a paired. There is a student in the post-professional program that's not here today. Sometimes we do a match, so a pair advisor. So there's a student, Jia Long has 2 advisors or a co-advising, where one faculty member is advising in terms of design, and another faculty member is designing in terms of techniques. So it kind of maybe depends. And then in terms of urban design, there's a whole range of topics. And as Stephanie, I think, are you the only Canadian in the program this year? I'm not actually sure.
Yes, I am the only Canadian. And I
So
also spent like the last 8 years in the States, so I'm also like kind of new to the city, so it's very diverse. Yeah.
yeah, that's amazing. So yeah, I mean it's I think we have students from Mexico this year, Taiwan, India. But I mean it's a really incredible mix of students. And so my philosophy on the urban design program is to not sort of give it too much of a bound subject area, and really let and given that sometimes it ranges between 7 or 12 students, it's almost like a parliament, right? Like it feels like a kind of United Nations meetings, like sitting with these students. So it feels beneficial to be open and flexible rather than to have a kind of fixed area within urban design. And so we kind of go with like each year is very different depending upon the mix and the kind of energy of that group. So yeah, we try to not really have too much of a specialization, but I will say that the first year of the program is very Toronto and Canada centered with the assumption that there's a general interest to continue working or practicing in Canada. And so we want to make sure that we cover that. That of course continues in the second year of the urban design program with the real estate and some of the other required courses and the planning course. But in terms of studios, it's very global, very outward looking. It's an international, I would describe it as an international program in that regard. But yeah, happy to take some more questions, and we've got Alex and Bianca here as well to answer any questions about the admissions process and financial aid, etc. But Bianca's already given you her email if you'd like to respond to that. And
Thank
I'm
you.
happy. My email, I think, well, we can put it in the chat as well, but I think it's just up on the website. You can find me, and any student here is welcome to email me anytime. Don't ever think that, oh, he's got too many emails. It's very important to me. My favorite emails are the emails from the students, much more than from administrative emails. So I'd rather be getting emails from students.
Thank you, Mason. So this next question is for Alex. It's an admissions related question, and it is about the research statement. They'd like to know if they're supposed to mention which professors they'd like to work with in the research statement.
So here, let me pull up the actual requirement. So it is not expected to declare an advisor for your application, no. And just to clarify, can you hear me? Yep. So in the Master of Architecture post-professional, it is not required to declare to mention a supervisor within the application. No.
Okay, thank you. And so then, Mason, I think this question, I'm not entirely sure what it's referring to, but I'm hoping you do. The four general umbrellas can be interconnected and the selection is a combination. Is that correct?
Yeah, again, it's really our way of communicating, hey, we think we're good in these areas. We have good scholarship and researchers and our network, let's say, whether it's professionals or those that are part-time teachers or sessionals, whatever it might mean. It just means that in these subject areas, we have a strong record and we have a strong network. Students, I mean, I think if you ask Sarah and Chen, they're not squarely within those four areas of interest. Sometimes they're kind of within one of them, plus they've flavored it with something else of their own interest, or they're sometimes combining and grabbing, well, I'm interested in this sustainability aspect, but I'm interested in justice issues, or I'm interested in action and health, right? You can really some there we're not the only reason we describe these to you is that if we said nothing, you would think, well, what are you good at? And we're just trying to communicate outward externally that we have strengths in these areas and we have people that are doing really fascinating work in these areas. And we might change them year over year, but they've stuck for the last 2 years. So absolutely, yes, you can cross pollinate from one subject. You can grab something from outside. I had a student 2 years ago that worked on education spaces, and she really wanted to collaborate with an advisor in OISE, which is our sort of school of education, and work with teachers. And she did an amazing job at just resourcefully meeting with somebody once every 2 weeks to get feedback on how her vision for a new kind of school design, how it relates to the history of education and so forth. So I think students can be quite resourceful about finding and reaching across our network of other scholars and academics who might be relevant to their topics. So we're very open. And if you have specific questions or if you want to run a topic by me, I'm all ears.
Thank you, Mason. And I have put Mason's email address in the chat. So if anybody does want to send an email to Mason, you can do so. I've also shared the email address for our admissions team. And so if you have admission related questions about your application, you can send them there. So we have one more question that has just come in. I am a Bachelor of Environmental Studies in Urban Planning graduate, have design experience and a portfolio, and is wanting to ask, would it be possible to apply to both the Master of Urban Design as well as the Master of Architecture at the same time? Or is one limited to just one program in the Daniels faculty? So I guess that's partially for Mason, partially for Alex. And also the second part to that question is, would my background in urban design be considered a good fit for both programs? Or is it a better fit for urban design?
So I
I'll let
can,
Alex
oops,
go
sorry,
first. Yeah.
Mason.
Go ahead, Alex.
I can,
I was gonna say,
Yeah, I can quickly address the, you can apply to all the programs if you'd like. We have people that do apply to multiple programs. It is important to consider kind of differentiating the application. Carbon copies across all the programs. I mean, obviously faculty members can see that. And obviously we can't coach on what we want to see or what the admissions committee wants to see, but something that is actually relevant to the program, obviously is a good thing. So making sure that your portfolio is different for differing programs. I mean, your statement of interest, anything along those lines, it is beneficial to have it be different, but you can apply to literally almost all of them as long as you qualify. That's it.
Mason, did you want to answer the second part of that question about it being a good fit?
I mean, yes, as I think Stephanie actually answered that one. So, yeah, I mean, it's really interesting that these are very much sister disciplines. Like landscape architecture, architecture, and urban design are really siblings. They play well together for the most part, and any fights they have with each other only make them stronger. So I think urban design background is very effective and very useful in architecture, and obviously an urban design background is very effective and useful in urban design, as would a planning background. So yeah, we generally play well with others, and any fights we have, I think, just make the bonds more stronger. And we're under the same roof together. And Stephanie's in one of the programs right now, or one of the courses right now, in which all three disciplines are have the same assignment, and they're looking at it from different angles, and then they're sharing how they look at it from that angle with each other. And I think it creates a really rich dialogue and exchange that's really common in the professional practice. This is happening all the time, certainly in the city of Toronto, and I'm sure in other places where landscape architects, and urban designers are working collaboratively on some of our biggest challenges ahead.
Thank you so much. So again, we have worked through most of the questions. Oh, another question has just come in. I think this is a question again about the application. So perhaps Alex, you could answer it. In the case I mentioned the advisor I want to work with in my research statement, could that be negative in any way?
So we say with any sort of application material that we want to see you shine through. If that's something that's relevant to you, or if it's a reason you decided here, then obviously you're welcome to add it. We're not going to, I can't speak for the entire admission committee, but I don't think they would demerit you just by mentioning that you would like to work with a specific person. If anything, like I said, if it's really helping illustrate your reasoning for coming here or something that really attracted you to the program, that's great. It really kind of, like I said, helps the admissions committee get a really great sense of who you are and what you plan on doing here. So no, it wouldn't hurt you.
Okay, thank you so much. So we are coming to the end of our time together, and so I just want to remind you that if you have any questions related to financial aid and awards, you would send an email to Bianca at awards@daniels.utoronto.ca. Mason, if you have any questions for Professor Mason White, the email address is there in the chat. And then any admissions related questions can be sent to graduate@daniels.utoronto.ca. And then I would, if you are in the Toronto area and you would like to come in person, we would love to have you here. We are hosting an open house tomorrow, actually. And so if you are interested in joining us to see the spaces that students study in, you could hear from Professor Mason White again, who will be leading 2 workshops, one on these programs, as well as a portfolio workshop if anybody is interested in joining. And I do want to take a moment to say thank you so much to our students for joining us today. We're very lucky to be able to hear from current students at an information session like this. And so thank you so much for sharing your experiences and giving us your time, Stephanie, Sarah, and Chen. And so thank you everybody for joining us. And we wish you all a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.